La 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 la. Hi, Jasvir.
Hi, Haj.
I'm going to go straight into the questions, right?
Let's
And
go.
and a bit like yourself, I've been and I've experienced trauma from
Mm.
a young age, and I found music to be a powerful way of healing.
Mm.
Can you tell me and just explain to me kind of what's led you to kind of start off Core Voices
The loaded question right at the
right
beginning.
at the beginning? Yeah, that's correct.
What led me to it? A lot of things. Personal experience, having been on the receiving end of abuse, different types of abuse, like being raised in a Punjabi
Mhm.
household in the 80s. We all know what that was like, right? Alcohol violence was normal almost in every household. And that creates layers of trauma inside of our bodies, and we don't know how to process that. It changes actually how our brain chemistry formulates us as humans and as adults, because when we're coming into our adult life out of our childhood years, we take that same programming with us. As much as we don't want to, it's still there, like in our subconscious. So those were some of the layers that were there. Having experienced like sexual abuse myself, I went through that as a child, and then even as a young adult. It's not something that women are allowed to often talk about, especially in South Asian and Punjabi spaces. The stigma around it makes you unappealing for a variety of reasons, because if people were to find out all of a sudden, like the ਘਰ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਇੱਜ਼ਤ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਉੱਡ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਆ just because the daughter was the victim of something,
Hmm.
right? Um, the layers of shame, who's going to marry you, and all of those things. So there's a lot of women in our community who have experienced sexual abuse and never spoken about it, never had the opportunity to speak up about it for the stigmas. They speak in small circles amongst the women.
Hmm.
So I remember when we were growing up, whenever there was a family gathering, it was like the men were in one room drinking,
Yeah, yeah.
and the women were in another room. And the like my generation, we were always confused, like why is there segregation here? And it's only as an adult that I began to realize, oh, it's actually a safety thing. And the women knew that when the men get a little bit drunk, some of them can get a bit handsy. So that
Wow.
the easiest way to create safety is segregation. Like, let them do their thing, they're over there. And they have like one or two volunteers from the kitchen who are taking the food and the supplies in.
Right.
And then just they're coming out. They're not staying in that environment, because they were aware that
Something might happen or
could
something.
happen, or
Right.
something inappropriate. And then, if
Uh-huh.
somebody says something to somebody else's woman, it's going to kick off. And to avoid all of that nonsense, it was like an unspoken measure of safety.
Right.
But it looked like gender inequality, that the women are in the kitchen slaving away and the men are allowed to go and have fun.
And that from a perspective standpoint, a lot of people would see it like that.
Yes.
They wouldn't look at it the other perspective. And I think that's what's really important for us to talk about
Yeah.
is really what is the perspective of these things. And, you've
Mm.
just mentioned something there, which I guess would be very difficult to say. When you say you're a trauma survivor,
Mm-hmm.
right? When did those words actually leave your lips for the first time that I
Mm.
was sexually abused?
I started Core Voices. That
Wow.
was literally me finding my voice.
Right.
And there's like a little spin off of the name as well, is like our core voices, the things that we've not spoken about, the unspoken things
In the
inside of
yeah.
us. We need to reach into our core to let them out. But also the empowerment of what God means,
Mhm.
stepping into your sovereign and using that power from like Sikhi to give me the courage and strength that I needed to come forward and say, this happened to me. This is not okay,
Mm.
and we can't burn everything down, but we have to look at the systems and the structures and also try to work into solutions as well. Many would say that's unfair pressure to put onto a trauma survivor or a victim of abuse. And I'm not saying that this is the role or the duty of every survivor. I'm saying this is what I felt I needed to do, which was recognizing that the community is unaware
Yeah.
and unable to provide a solution to this problem because they're still in denial.
And is it more that? Is it they're unaware or is it they're in denial?
Both. We have
Yeah.
both spectrums. You can't put everybody into one category.
Sure.
That's also unfair,
Yeah.
because Those that have witnessed abuse or participated in abuse,
Mhm.
they are playing the ignorance card. No, 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 or the denial card, because they need to keep their MO, they need to keep their cover. Um, then you got the other extreme of the spectrum. When the Me Too movement started, the hashtag Me Too in 2017,
Right.
okay,
Yep.
that went globally viral. And you've got millions and millions of women around the world reposting this hashtag on Twitter, and the internet's blowing up. One of the most loudest responses that came in from men is, we didn't know. Like there was a
Mm.
huge group of men that genuinely didn't know that the women around them, who they were now seeing retweeting this hashtag, had been through some form of sexual abuse or harassment, or, that this applied to them as well. What I can tell you, like with full confidence, is that all women at some point have experienced harassment. Of what degree,
Yep.
that can be, we can have conversations about that, but they will have, from catcalling to just like, inappropriate gestures or inappropriate unwanted touches and things like that,
Yep.
to the extremities as
Mhm.
well. This happens more than we would like to admit in general society. The reason I zoned into Punjabi and Sikh spaces, specifically when I began, now I'm in the wider South Asian space, was because Sikhi is a space of zero tolerance where it comes to any form of oppression, injustice, or abuse. The fact that I was aware through my own experience and through conversations with people who had shared with me their experiences in Sikh spaces, that was what was unacceptable and alarming for me. That if we imagine that Guru Gobind Singh was here now in physical form, what would they do knowing that this is happening,
Mhm.
and I was to share with them what I've been through, firsthand experience? What would be the response? And I think I could imagine what that response would be. I'd like you to imagine that as well.
Mhm.
What do you think they would say?
It's well, you can't. It's just it's not even a conversation you can even think about because it shouldn't. You shouldn't even have a thought of that, especially in the place. If we're talking about places of worship, especially like we say Gurdwara or a community center that's linked with the Gurdwara, places of worship
Mhm.
that's the most sacred place you want to be able to go to.
So it would be unacceptable, right?
100%.
No question, no doubt.
And this is where I guess we connected. You know,
Mhm.
one of the reasons I reached out to you in on LinkedIn was for that purpose that it's taken me nearly 40 years to kind of come
Mm,
over the trauma that I went through back in 1984.
mm,
You know, being in a place of worship in a gurdwara in Delhi in Nanaksar, um, you know, having the army put a gun to my head saying this kid let off the fireworks is one thing, but having the Gyanis then tie me up and put me into the Divan Sahib is unacceptable because we are human beings. And that's what gets me. It's like trauma has multiple ways, you know,
mhm,
physical, mental, and mental, you know, the fact that
mm,
your parents aren't there to support you or survive. And then it goes to that extreme where it becomes sexual abuse. Is totally unacceptable. Totally.
mhm. I don't even know what to say to your experience of what you went through there in 84, but that is, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
It's not okay. And it's unimaginable for me to, think into what that would feel like. But this is where they are is important. Like when we're sharing our trauma, when we're sharing our stories, our journeys of life together, it's that empathy, that pyar, that daya that activates where we come together on a human level. And yes, rightfully so, that was how we connected in our
Mhm.
conversation. And it makes you feel in your body how important it is for us to be able to talk about these things, because when we're looking at Sikhi, for me, I have a very high standard, and I'm disappointed with the fact that we're not able to meet that standard currently in how we are as a community globally.
Yeah.
When we're not at par, if we're looking at it historically, who Sikhs were and the standard that they maintained and how they were respected and how they were people of honor, we have strayed so far away from that we are unrecognizable. And I think that we would be disappointing our gurus if they were to come and audit the panth right now. It would be disappointing on like a crazy level.
Yeah.
Um,
I
The
believe, sorry to interrupt, but I believe that, you know, if we go fundamental basics,
Mhm,
we bring religion and we bring, the whole thought around Sikhi and everything else, but we start with ik, right?
mhm.
We can't be one with ourselves. And trauma prevents you from being one with yourself.
Mhm,
So when I read up about core voices and I read up about your story, that's what was kind of connecting me is that, hold on a minute, you have to be one within yourself
mhm,
before you can move and try and find the vibrations of connection to move forward.
mhm.
So just moving on slightly and just kind of thinking about, once you've set this up and you've set up core voices, what was your mission? What was the driver for you, and what was the kind of the 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 kind of long term goal for you when you set up core voices?
It's evolved from
Hmm.
the initial, um, call to action,
Okay.
we'll say, um, and the call to action wasn't clear to me at the beginning. It didn't go in line with the Me Too movement
Hmm.
because when the Me Too hashtag kicked off, a part of me wanted to retweet it, but I knew I couldn't
Right.
because I'm in public spaces, people know me, like, if they know that about me, all of a sudden, I'm gonna be tainted. I'm gonna be, like, outcast because that's unfortunately how the community still works, especially in religious spaces. So, if I'm trying to go into the Gurdwara and talk about Kirtan and talk about healing and the education and the reclaiming and decolonization, all the stuff that I was doing then,
Hmm.
and now all of a sudden, they know that I've retweeted this hashtag, or if it gets out there, we are governed by our society and by our community, especially in South Asian spaces. And look, itanu jean nahi dende. So understanding the I'm gonna say the sensitivities of what this meant in 2017 when the Me Too hashtag kicked off. I wanted to, but I couldn't.
Hmm.
And then I just in my ardas, I was like, I sent power to all the women who are doing it, who have the ability to share that. And then I noticed a pattern. The pattern I noticed, there were or very few South Asian women retweeting that hashtag. And I was like,
Yeah.
this would mean to the wider world, this doesn't happen in South Asian spaces. That's not true. And I was like, it got me thinking. I was like, so why are other women not retweeting? And it was exactly that. It's like, what is the world now going to think of us? And a lot of these women, much like me, had never told anybody,
Hmm.
anybody that this had happened. So they've kept this in their body for all of these years. Now they've got a moment that they could use their voice and they could, finally let that out in some way, even if it is just through a hashtag.
Yeah.
And that's what that did for a lot of women across the world, was give them the sense of relief. कि "हुण मेरे अंदरों गल निकल गई है." And I don't have to verbalize it. I don't have to tell my story. But even just saying that I'm part of this hashtag, part of this movement, is enough to create some space and some peace in my body. And that was like transformational for a lot of women that I spoke to when I asked them, what made you retweet that? And many of them were scared. Many of them didn't. But the ones that weren't scared did it. But no South Asian women did.
Yeah.
Because what were they now going to tell their husbands? What were they going to tell their families? How would they, if they still have to interact with the person who harmed them, what would that mean then? So they refrained from it
How many times did the word honor come up?
a lot. Is that,
Yeah.
yeah. And a lot of them felt shame.
Mm.
They felt like it was their fault. Like now I'm dirty because this happened to me. And I had to do a lot of work with them to say, no, the reframing of that needs to be activated right now. This is not your fault. You didn't warrant this. You didn't call for this. There's nothing that you did to deserve this.
Yeah.
This was somebody else not having control of their senses, not having control over their calm and their jatsat, where they've stepped out of the bounds of their maryada and their discipline, and they've done something unspeakable, but they're allowed to exist in plain sight.
But is that fear again? We talk about um, fright, flight, and freeze,
Mm.
right? So is it fear that kicks that in, and people start to kind of they only want to bottle it in because that old saying they don't want Pandora's out of the box or they don't want the genie out of the
But
lamp,
if
and
we
they
think
just
about the South
suppress it.
Asian community, like
Yeah,
Punjabi community,
yeah,
it is this.
mm,
Loਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਆ?
that's right. Yeah,
And you have to even if you're getting the shit kicked out of you at home. Can I swear? Is that okay?
Of course.
Okay.
Look, like I said to you, this isn't a podcast. This is a conversation. So
Yes.
for me,
Okay. Yeah.
we want to be able to kind of
All right.
be
Then I'm
open.
gonna
Yeah,
get
yeah,
comfy in
get
my seat.
comfortable because again, anybody watching this, what I always say is, look, the whole reason we do media, right,
Mhm.
is to be able to give a platform that if we're sharing a story, if somebody listen, no one person,
Yeah.
if this can help one person from listening to this podcast or this conversation, if it can help that one person, we've done something here.
Mhm.
That one connection from LinkedIn to a connection of us sitting on the sofa and having this conversation. If
Mm.
that can help one person, isn't that amazing?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what we want to do.
Yes.
So if you want to
Okay.
swear, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Now
Good.
I forgot what I was gonna say.
No, so we're talking about is it?
Yes, that we're so concerned with what people are going to say because that's how we're programmed.
Mm.
When you're getting the shit kicked out of you at home because your dad's had a few, like when we were little, that was normal.
Yeah, that was
It
normal.
wasn't
Yeah.
okay, it was completely
No.
messed up, but it was normal because the pattern was that that's happening at home behind a closed door. Now, the moment in the morning you put your school uniform on and you're going to school, you don't speak of that. You've now been trained to wear this mask
Hmm.
and you're trained to lie. Because even if you do have a couple of little scuffs on your face or bruises or whatever, you know what to say. What are you going to say?
Yeah. It was always somebody else's fault. I fell over. I tripped. Oh, the dog bit my ear. It was always something
See,
else. It was
you
never the
knew
truth.
too. So we didn't grow up in the
No,
same
no, no, no,
household.
no.
You knew too. I knew
Mm,
too, and so did everybody else. That
yeah.
you don't do that. So
Culturally, we knew just by the eyes of our parents what was
mm,
going to happen, and it was a generation.
it's like death is coming right
That's
now.
it. That famous saying, "Tu kar chali."
Oh
Nothing
man,
actually happened, but sometimes
no,
it
but
really did.
still, just the fact that they
Yeah,
would say that it
yeah,
would send like shivers
yeah.
of
That's right.
terror in your body,
Yeah,
or just the look.
the
Oh
look
my
was
god,
there.
the look. Oh
Mm,
my gosh. But um my point being that if that's our programming and we're talking about physical, like domestic abuse, the community back then, it's only now come a little bit more. We're going to say there's been some progress. It's not progressive yet,
no.
but we're getting
Hmm.
somewhere, like, which we're able to talk about
Talk
mental
about it.
health.
Yeah, yeah.
We're able to talk about trauma. We're able to talk about abuse. Back then, you couldn't even talk about domestic violence. And that was so prominent. So when we're talking about
Mm,
sexual abuse,
yeah.
um, nobody would talk about it.
No.
There was no chance that you would hear a woman say it to a man. Women amongst women would talk. That's what I found out, is that they shared
Mm,
their stories amongst each other, and that was how some of them dealt with it. Some of them never talked about it because they knew ਢਿੱਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੱਲ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਰੱਖਣੀ ਆ. And that was how they were trained when they were young,
yeah.
raised in India. How do you keep the honor of the home? Doesn't matter what's going on at home, you keep that gal inside of you and you put on a pristine exterior and then you go out into the world and you show them that we are the perfect family and there's nothing wrong with us. And everybody was doing the
But
fakeness.
then you get conditioned in that way.
But
So when you're
it's
conditioned in that way,
programming.
now you're going to work and you're making assumptions because you're thinking, oh, this is going to happen, but nobody's openly talking. And one thing that for
But you,
me,
but you can't openly talk because it's not safe to talk.
but
If
this, yeah, yeah, and we're putting all of these things in place. When we look at
mm,
employment, you got we talk about safeguarding, we're talking
mhm.
about welfare, and you've got all of this signposting for different places. But when does the South Asian community decide that actually we are going to talk about this?
you need a you need a container of safety for that to happen. And I say that from my own experience. I I remember when I was at school, um, secondary school in Willen Hall. Woo woo, Willen Hall. um, one of the incidences that had taken place at home left me with a significant visible mark on my
Sure.
face
Okay.
that stayed for a good few weeks. Like my face was
Wow.
basically cut open. Um, yes, and it wasn't pretty,
Yeah.
but I still had to go to school. I was like, fuck it, just gotta go, right?
Yeah.
And the teachers are asking me what's going on, and I was like,
Yeah.
I fell over. And they understood by this time that there was something more to it. And then the
Mhm.
two Indian teachers in the school, two Mr. Singhs actually, one of them who's the
Mhm.
cool one, he came and spoke to me and he was like, "Look, I know what's going on. Hannah. I taught your brothers as well. I know what your dad's like. You need to get some support." And I was like,
mm,
what what support is available. Social services wasn't an option for us because we knew what that meant, right?
mhm.
Like, if they're involved, your whole family is gonna be ripped to pieces, and then where's the coming back? Where's the coming together? It wasn't a solution, which is why women stayed, especially Punjabi women, stayed in domestically abusive and violent relationships because they didn't have other actual options, viable options at least. So they made me go to mandatory counselling,
Right.
and they had some Gori Buri come to the school to come and speak to me. I'd never had counselling before, and I was like, "Is this why am I going to do
Yeah,
this?" And
yeah.
so I'm sitting in the room. I must have been like 14, 15,
Right.
and she was youngish. I think she's probably in her 20s. Like when you're little,
Yeah.
you think that everybody's
Oh,
really,
no.
really old. So maybe she's in her
She
30s. I
just
don't know.
graduated really. Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
And we started to have a bit of a conversation. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what this was going to be. And she said, "There's been some concerns, and I can see that you seem to have hurt yourself. Do you want to talk about it?" And I was like, "Not really. Like, I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
What else can we talk about?" And she told me that everything that I'm going to say is in confidence. And I was like, "Okay." That kind of made me a little bit more comfortable.
Mhm.
So, like, what are the components that make you feel safe to open up? Okay. Um, that was probably the only one, knowing that she's not allowed to tell anybody
Yeah.
unless there's something like that I'm going to harm myself or if I'm in danger. So I told her about something that had happened a few weeks before at home.
Mhm.
It wasn't really a big deal. It was just like a
And not a
like a,
big deal for you.
yeah, like a low
Yeah.
level store compared to everything else
Right,
that I'm
sure.
going to say the Punjabi
Yeah,
community was
yeah.
used to. It
Okay.
was like I was testing the water, Hannah.
Okay.
So I was like, let me give you a small little story
Yeah.
and of what I've actually been, something that I've experienced recently, Hannah.
Yeah.
She started crying.
Wow.
And I sat there, I was like, "Oh shit, I can't
Yeah.
tell you anything. I can't tell you anything."
Mm,
And she was like really affected by what I had said to her.
mm.
And I hadn't even, for me, I hadn't told her something that was more serious, you know? Um,
Was that through empathy or was that through sorrow for her?
I don't know, but I don't care, to be honest.
Right.
I was there with a professional, with an
Yeah,
adult who's
yeah.
supposed to help me through
Exactly.
this.
And you're thinking, hold on, I'm telling you the most smallest thing and you're already in tears.
Right.
How are you gonna help me with the bigger thing?
So I realized
Yeah.
in that moment, because you've already weighed out, you've done all of this
Of course.
training since you were younger,
Mm.
and you recognize that other people don't have the capacity to hold space for you and they don't have the understanding. Then you've got cultural barriers.
Mm.
They don't understand our reet rivaj, like why we do particular things, how we respect and love our parents and our families, even when it can be toxic and all the rest of it, but we're still loyal to
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
That's in our DNA.
yeah.
It's part of our value system. And just because Western society has different values and different ideals of how they operate in their families doesn't make ours wrong or
Mhm.
less than theirs. It just means it's different. And this works for us.
And all we're trying to do is scream and shout and say what is right and what is wrong. We want to stick with the values. We
Mhm.
don't want to become westernized and totally we want to have our culture. We want to stay
We
with
do.
that. We just want to acknowledge what is right and what is
Mhm.
wrong.
But when we're talking with somebody who doesn't, like we were
Yeah.
talking earlier, who
Yeah.
can't see it from your perspective,
Correct.
yeah?
Yeah.
I'm not
No, don't bring that one
I'm not gonna say it.
Uh,
Not gonna say that.
okay.
But who
Yeah.
can't see it from your perspective or can't even imagine into that perspective, they can't give you support.
Yeah.
So I that was when I realized that, oh, this isn't gonna work for me because I can't sit here and teach you cultural context and give you like frame it all for you and then go into now, unraveling all of my trauma. That's
Yeah. Of
exhausting.
course it is.
That's
Yeah.
re-traumatizing me.
Hmm.
That's not helpful to me. That's gonna destroy me.
Hmm.
And I'm a young teenager at that point.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm good. I don't
Mm.
need this. And I didn't go to any more sessions because that didn't give me trust. She gave me one thing, which was saying this is a confidential space, and I thought, oh, let me
Yeah.
try.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I saw she doesn't have the capacity, so I stepped away.
Mm.
And through my life, that was one of the things that I realized is my experiences throughout my life have been um, different to other people's, harsher in some ways, and I've programmed myself somehow, or
Mm.
Maraj has programmed me to sometimes make light of it. Like, I've got an awful sense of humor, but that's how I deal with it. And
Yeah.
it's like it's gotten me through, and I'd rather be in joy and in laughter than in sorrow and in pain.
I think a lot of those is how do you turn up for yourself?
Mhm.
Because again, if you do go down the victim scenario
Mhm.
and always punish yourself, how is that going to help you help others? And I think that's the biggest challenge is how do people recognize that we're coming out the blame culture, we're going to be accountable,
Mhm.
yeah, and we're going to find a solution to get on with it. And those solutions that you find kind of, if I look back and I sometimes think, you I thought somebody swore at me, right? But a couple of years ago, somebody called me fastidious. They goes, "You're so fastidious," and I'm like, "What the hell does that mean?" I thought it was a swear word, so I had to Google it up and find out what fastidious means, and it means somebody who pays a lot of attention to detail.
Mhm.
And I realized that the reason I put so much attention to detail is because you have now programmed yourself to find something that gives you a coping mechanism.
Mhm.
My coping mechanism was to work hard.
Mm.
So I just focused on working hard and
Mhm.
putting attention to detail on anything I did. And that's
Mm.
all it was. But then that can come across to other people as, oh, this person's this way, but they
Mhm.
don't know the true authentic self
Right.
of who I am and what I do and why I
What's
am the
behind
way I
it?
am. Yeah, that's
Mm.
right.
Yes. That's important. Um, People don't have capacity to hold space. People don't have capacity for understanding. They lack common sense and they lack compassion or consideration.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, those three C's, compassion, consideration, they they're not there. Um, if we think about how people drive on the roads, they're not considering other drivers. They're just doing what they want to do. It's very selfish, and that's how we show up as humans too. Is we're just doing our thing. And when somebody like nowadays, when people ask you, "How are you?" they're not asking you how you actually are. They're just doing a formality. I
Mhm.
said hi to you. I said, "How are you? What's your problem?" I asked you how you were. But they don't want you to actually sit there and say, "Well, actually, I'm not
Mhm.
great." They're just waiting for the one sentence, "I'm good." Okay, great. Now let's move to the next thing.
Mhm.
And that takes away our human connection. That takes away our compassion. So when we're looking at what it means to create a space of safety for somebody who's sharing something more vulnerable, what does that look like and what does that require? And having experienced so many spaces that lacked safety, that lacked accountability,
Mhm.
that lacked even the awareness or the emotional intelligence of what is required to hold space for another human being who is breaking down, who is sharing something deeply traumatic, it doesn't require you to provide solutions. It doesn't require you to sit there and analyze. It literally requires you to sit there and shut the fuck up.
Mhm.
That's all you have to do.
And listen.
Exactly. If you can just be quiet and you will start to listen, because what will happen is you'll connect through that frequency. It's going to activate your compassion. It's going to activate your actual true human nature, which is to care and to be considerate. But you have to give yourself that quietness in your mind to do that, which means just being neutral. Nowadays, the bombardment we have is people don't know how to listen.
It's interesting you saying that because right now,
Hmm.
you know, I'm listening, right? But there's levels of listening.
Of course.
So levels of listening, obviously you have the storytelling,
Mm-hmm.
which I want to tell my story. I'm
Mm-hmm.
listening to your story, but I want to tell my story. So there's an issue there because are you 100% listening? What we call be here now. Are you present in this present moment? The other one is going to be I'm already judgmental. I don't want to listen to what you're saying, so I'm going to judge you. So you might tell me that you love Ferraris, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I hate Ferraris. I'm a Lamborghini guy, right? So I've already becoming judgmental, so I'm not listening. Then you've got listening for understanding. And I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
highest level of listening is where
Mm-hmm.
you can actually take that time out. So you've got away from judgmental, you got away from storytelling, you got away from your own opinions, and now
Mm-hmm.
you're actually listening to understand. And that's the most powerful form of listening. And again, you're right. In the English terms, people used to say, and remember at school, you got two ears and one mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There must have been a
Yes.
reason why God gave you two ears, right?
Yes.
Right. So listen. Yeah, and I think you're definitely right there. Um, I think on that note, let's take a short break, right? And then we'll come back because I want to dig a little bit more deeper on this core voices because I think we've just touched on it,
Yeah.
and I want to find out
This is where I
the
was
deeper.
coming back to. So
Yeah,
we'll continue after the break, but this was to lead into what the purpose and the vision was behind that space.
excellent. Thank you.
ਨੀਵੀਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਕੁਝ ਚਿਰ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਰੱਖ ਲੈ
The nephews is in the house.
ਮੁਖੜਾ ਲੁਕਾ ਕੇ ਰੱਖ ਲੈ ਐਵੇਂ ਕਰੀ ਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਪਿਆਰ ਮੁੰਡਿਆਂ
As
ਤੋਂ
soon as
ਭੱਜ
the
ਕੇ
beat
ਰਹੀ
drop, we got the streets locked overseas. A Punjabi MC and
Okay, welcome back. Welcome back. So I think just before the break, we were just discussing about, the coming back to the core voices,
Mm.
right? And actually, let's pick it up from there.
So I was sharing with you the components that I was seeing missing in spaces that I tried to seek support
Yeah,
because I was never stupid enough to think that I can deal with whatever's going on, like in my trauma, just by myself. I knew I needed somebody to help me, but everywhere I would go, every door I would knock on, the person in the room wasn't able to hold space for me. I found it with friends as well. It was like they didn't really have the capacity. So I always had to like shrink or minimize what was going on. And I became good at that. Instead of just telling things for fact for what they were, when I had done that, like so if I shared with my friends what was actually going on in my home,
yeah.
they thought I was lying
Mm,
or they would accuse me of attention seeking.
mm.
And I was like, oh, that's really distasteful to me. So fuck that. I'm just not going to tell you. And then I would tell them smaller versions, like I would minimize what had actually gone on and then tell them something because their mom or dad had heard something had gone on at home and they wanted to say, they wanted to know,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
wanted
yeah,
the tea,
yeah,
but also they wanted to pretend like they care as well. So I was like, it's fine, it's friends, this is what they do. So
yeah,
I kind of accepted very early on that I might never talk about this stuff just because, not because I don't want to, but because there's nobody who would know how to guide me through that. And that was always like a longing or a heartache that,
mhm.
oh shit, this is gonna go with all of this gonna go with me to the grave, especially the CSA stuff.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah,
Like how and who would I ever tell that to without them judging me or making me feel like shit? And if I can't even go to a therapist and talk about basic stuff that's gone on at home, and that's I traumatize my therapist,
yeah, yeah.
So what options do we have left?
Mm.
Um, and I navigated most of my life like that, just like probably every other Punjabi person did, which is like you just like you roll your sleeves up and you get on with it. And you're like, I've just got to do it. So you do it. Because you don't really have another option. When the whole the Me Too stuff kicked off, a year later, I was on tour with the group that I was with at that time, and we were in San Francisco. And on that tour, at the end of the tour, literally the day before we were supposed to fly back was the last event, and we were doing a concert there. After that, at that event, I was assaulted, like
Mhm.
sexually assaulted by somebody that we had hired from the local area to play tabla with us.
Wow. Okay.
And yeah, and we'd just done Kirtan.
Oh my God.
And this
This
is
was
an Amritari guy.
in the place of worship,
No, no, it wasn't in a
right?
gurdwara. Um, it was a different venue, but we had done some Shabad Kirtan on the stage as well, right? And the reason I said is concert because it was like everybody was sitting on chairs, but shoes off, heads covered,
Right.
all of that
Okay.
stuff.
Yeah.
And we'd hired a tabla player from the local area because our guy had a last minute thing, couldn't make it. And we're like, fine. So Amritari, young man, not old uncle, right? And found an opportunity where I was by myself and took advantage of that opportunity. And because he caught me off guard, I just froze.
Mm.
And I was so angry with myself for months. Why the fuck did I not do anything? Why didn't I kick the shit out of him? Because I could have, but my body froze. Like it
Mm.
actually froze. And I'd never had that feeling in my life. And it's weird. Because if you've never had that feeling, when it happens to you, you don't know what's going on.
It's an out of body experience.
It really is, and it's
Yeah.
so like it's so disjolted. Um, and I felt ashamed to tell somebody that, you know what,
Mm.
I froze. Like, what the fuck? How do you just freeze? But when it happened and I literally couldn't move my body, I was like, what the fuck is happening? And it's so terrifying. Like, it's actually terrifying because you can't move your body, you can't respond. So, a lot of people, a lot of men, unfortunately, will
Mm.
have an opinion when women have been harmed or been attacked or abused. Like, why didn't you fight? Why didn't you do something? Because sometimes logically, your body and your brain will shut down and that can happen to you and you can just freeze because the shock has just
Yeah.
hit you like a wave and there's nothing physically you can do. Cognitively, you're there, but physically, you're not. So, what the fuck do you do in that situation? And there's no rule book for that. Nobody teaches you or trains you what to do in that situation. And at the first opportunity I could, I got the fuck out of there.
Mm.
And I didn't tell anybody. As it had happened, I kind of like slipped between two curtains behind the stage. There was still like media and folks doing interviews with the rest of the team. I was in the green room where it happened. And I stood there and I just had to recollect myself like, what the fuck just happened and how did that happen? And I made a decision in myself that I know how to minimize shit.
Mm.
If I make a big deal right now and I tell these guys, I tell my team, they would more than kick the shit out of this person.
Yeah.
And then they're all going to get locked up and nobody goes home tomorrow. And we've been out on the road for a month. These guys have got families. They need to get home to their kids. That was my level of consideration.
Mm.
And that was my go to. It wasn't, oh, what do I need right now? I was like,
It's everyone else. It's yeah,
because
looking
I'd
at
been
their
trained like that from a little girl,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
You don't
now,
matter. It's always lucky.
mhm.
Lucky ki get. What will the third
It
person
wasn't
think?
even the loki kikenge. I'm like I move with a pack,
Right.
right?
Okay.
Like I look after my people, I look after my family. If you're part of my pack, I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
look after you
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna be considerate. I'm gonna think about what is your step 2, 3, and 4, not just step 1.
Right.
That could have been all about me and it would have been valid and justified.
Yeah.
But because of how I've been conditioned,
Yeah.
that wasn't my go-to. I
Mm.
wasn't my own priority, but I was my own priority, which is weird. Okay? I wasn't in the sense that I thought about them that they're gonna kick the shit out of him and like kick the shit out of him and
Yeah.
probably
Yeah. Yeah.
worse.
Yeah.
Um, and they are gonna get
Mm.
arrested
Mm.
and they're not gonna go home tomorrow. And then there's gonna be a whole shit show. And does that all need to happen? And I rationalized in my mind and I asked myself, do I want to talk about this right now? And what do I need right now? And all I
Mm.
needed was just to process and I needed time to figure out what it is I wanted. And I told one of the team members, somebody that I could trust. And when I told him, I literally saw his face change and in his eyes, I could see the rage.
Yeah.
And I had to grab his arm. He's like a younger brother to me. And I grabbed his arm and I said, I don't need you to do anything. I just need you to stand right here.
Mhm.
Don't say anything to me. Don't do anything. Just can you stay right here? That's all I need. Can you do that? And he said, yes. So I understand that he would have had to reckon with everything that was now. The rage was moving through his body and his mind because he wants to protect me and he cares and all the
I'm
rest of
sat
it.
here, listen, we've only known each other probably a couple of months, and I'm full of rage right now.
Right.
You know, just listening to the
Mm-hmm.
story is making my blood boil. And the fact that, you know, religion is so important about education,
Mm-hmm.
Sikhi is about education, and the fact that this person who is shown as an
Mm-hmm.
Amritari Sikh
Mm-hmm.
can even think of doing anything like that
Mm-hmm.
makes my blood boil.
Mm-hmm.
So I would hate to think, you know, what that other person was when you was telling him what he was supposed to be thinking.
So I understand that he would have had to reckon with that. But the fact that in that moment he was able to put that aside
Hmm.
and hear what I was asking and just show up for me.
Yeah.
Like for those few minutes, that helped me regulate myself.
Okay.
And I regulated and then I like switched into my programming, which was like put on the mask, you know, put all the pieces in place, don't project anything so anybody picks up on my energy and get the fuck out of here. Get home and then figure out what I want to do. I just wanted to get home. I wanted to get back to England. And it happened. We did that, came back. And then it was a couple of weeks later that the two other team members, like the main team members, you could say. I
Mhm.
told them. They lost their shit when I told them. And they were like, why didn't you tell us then? Asi aa kar dena si, o kar dena si. I was like, that's why I didn't tell you.
Mhm.
And they were older than the guy that I told there on the day. And I predicted their responses. I was on point, 100%. And they had the chaos. And if they'd have had that chaos on that day, I didn't have the emotional capacity to explain or calm them down or, you know, not make the shit happen. Hannah?
Mhm.
I didn't want to deal with that. I needed to deal with what was going on with me. So I didn't want the drama around me. But now that I've had 2 weeks to process it, I can deal with their drama because it was fucking drama. It didn't happen to them. I get where it's coming from.
Yeah.
It's coming from a place of love. But ask me what I need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't tell me what you think I need. Do you have the ability
Mhm.
to ask me what I need?
Well, how are you? This is back to that original question, not asking you how are you because of the sake of asking, but actually asking authentically,
Hmm.
how are you? You
Yes.
know?
So these are people who are in the spiritual space, who are
Mm.
teachers as well. And if something on a material level can disrupt you spiritually, I mean, this is a valid thing. It's not like a small thing. So I get that it's going to create an activation. But in that space, I question your level of spiritual depth and grounding if you can't see the person in front of you and what they need in that moment. If all you're doing is prioritizing your emotions and what you're thinking and what you're feeling, but it didn't happen to you.
Mhm.
You're getting secondhand information, and the person it happened to is sitting in front of you, but you don't know how to communicate with them or hold space for them. So this reinforced the knowing that people don't know how to actually hold space for other humans.
It's interesting. So interesting what you're saying because the narrative is always different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's something that I learned a couple of years to get over trauma just in general, right? Which is around you have your reality and you put that into a circle. And to protect yourself, you have this story,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and you create this story. So in the middle, that overlap becomes your vicious circle
Mm-hmm.
because you end up going round and round. What the reality was, you're trying to ignore it because you've made this story in your mind,
Mm-hmm.
and it's only during the time you know what the reality was, but you're trying to protect yourself by making this story now, and it becomes that vicious circle. And it's how do we remove that vicious circle
Mm-hmm.
to acknowledge the reality? This is exactly what happened,
Right.
not what somebody's now forcing in your mind to make that story to
Mm-hmm.
protect you.
Mm-hmm. So that incident became the catalyst for the birth of God Voices
Right.
because I had to sit and reckon with myself. The abuse that I'd experienced earlier on in my life, I had disassociated from. I had locked it away and thrown away that key and tried not to think about it. And whenever it came up, I would ignore it and just like try to, because it was too big for me to process by myself.
Mm,
And I knew I didn't have the support around me. So I was like, why do I want to think about that? I don't want to think about that. I just want to, move on from it, which is not healthy to do. But I didn't have resources or tools or support.
yeah.
So I did whatever I could do to survive and to cope with it. And now I have my conversations with Maharaj, and in my ardas, I was asking, like, why? Not why me, but how? And like, what am I supposed to do with this? What is the purpose of this being reactivated? Because that incident reactivated the memory of trauma of CSA from my childhood.
Mhm.
And the other incidents of like assault or abuse that had happened in inappropriate contact, I'll say, with like elders and leaders in the community who don't know how to control their calm and they hit on young girls.
Mhm.
That happens far too often. One of the reasons that I stopped martial arts in the six spaces was that because there would come a point where those teachers would cross a line and hit on me, and it was
Mhm.
like clockwork. Um, and it was so vulgar to me. I just completely stopped martial arts for that reason, that there's no safety here. And Kirtan teachers, same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Teachers in the Gurdwara, Gyanis, like, all that stuff. Like women can see it in a man's eye. We can sense it in your energy. And when you see that, when you feel that, it grosses you out on another level. And I had to deal with that for 20 years, navigating in six spaces of leadership when I was traveling around the world. And there was a consistency of this. and it's a gandagi in the mind.
Mhm.
And that for me is sad because it means ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨਾਮ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੇ ਆ ਪਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਨਾਮ ਨਾਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ. You're saying it, but you're
Yeah.
not doing it.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to immerse and absorb into the principles of what naam means and what ik means and what Sikhi is all about, then you're wearing fancy dress, pretending to be something that you're not. Because if you can't control your jatsat, you can't control that this woman is like my daughter, or she's like my sister, or like my mother. This was our maryada. Now everybody's addicted to porn. Like every young person out there engages watching porn, right? That's become normal. And now that over sexualization in our minds exists in this like forbidden box, like a taboo that sometimes men will open and sometimes they'll close. And when that happens, it's women that predominantly become the victim. Not always, there's men that have been harmed too, that I've worked with too, but the majority of victims that came forward when I did the survey, and I'll talk about that in a second, were women that used their voices to say, this has happened to us and we understand what you're talking about. And I guarantee if you were to speak to every woman in your life, friends, family, they've all had some experience of harassment of the sexual capacity or abuse. Every woman has experienced it, and we know it too well. And it's a different experience being a woman in this world than it is being a man in this world. And when I was becoming more aware of what's going on and the incompetencies of our community and the contradictions of our ethics and our morals of how we practice as Sikhs, and we want to say to the world that Sikhs are an upstanding community and we believe in equality and X, Y, and Z. Yes, it's nice, but show me where this is present in practice. Where can I go and see this? Where can I meet people who actually live and embody this?
Is the challenge on minority versus majority? Is it a handful or is it majority? And I guess only data will tell us that.
I'm not a, burn everything to the ground kind of person. I'm not saying all men. I'm not. Most of the positive influences in my life have come through men. So I'm not deluded. I understand the nuances of challenges that men face. And most of my closest friends are men. And they're like my older brothers. I've seen the struggles that they have to go through, but the good ones are doing the work. The good ones are recognizing that they've got weaknesses and they want to improve those weaknesses and make them transform it to become something else, transmute it into a positive energy so it doesn't stay in the negative capacity. That's why we're taught, like Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Hankar, lust, anger, greed, attachment, ego. We're meant to be aware of them. I think there's a misinformation, I'll call it, where we're taught to eradicate them.
Yeah.
And when you are taught to eradicate it, it means this is wrong. Then there's like the reverse psychology component of it. When somebody told you can't do a thing, you want to do a thing, right? And you want to go see what's on the other side and, what are you missing out
Forbidden
on?
fruit is that whole Adam and Eve. Forbidden fruit. And you're right, it's all about awareness.
100%.
Yeah.
To my understanding of Gurbani, and I'm not saying I fully understand Gurbani, but to my very, very elementary level understanding, it's not about the eradication of, but more so the understanding of. That these are energies that exist in our body, and Maharaj is making us aware. Maharaj gave us the information saying, hey, you're here in the human form. This is the world that you've got to deal with. This is the makeup of the world. It's all fucked up, basically. But to navigate it ethically and to be an exemplary human being, here's a formatting for you to follow, which is the principles of the Guru Granth Sahib, like the whole of Gurbani is teaching us and guiding us on how to become this better version of ourselves that we all have the capacity to become, should we choose to do the hard work.
Yeah.
And Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Hankar are not our enemies. They're energies to be aware of. Like, is a knife good or bad?
Perspective. Again, when you say good or bad, it's good for cutting things, it's bad for stabbing somebody.
Precisely. Not the fault of the knife, how it's used.
No.
The intention of the individual wielding the knife. Correct?
Correct. It's like something we spoke about earlier when we were driving here was a police officer with a uniform.
Mhm.
If they've never been trained and you put a uniform on, somebody goes and knocks on a door as a police officer, you're
Mhm.
going to trust them
Mhm.
because you've been conditioned in a way to trust them.
Mhm.
So your story about what you've just said about somebody who's Amritari, we've been conditioned to trust them.
Mhm.
And that's the biggest flaw here that I find, is that we are becoming more or less puppets,
Mm.
whereby we're wearing all these costumes in effect, but
Mhm.
we can't get the fundamentals, basics right. When we talk about Lord Mohangar and all the 5 rituals, that are we actually aware of them?
Mhm.
And why can't we teach that or get those basics right before we start talking about,
Mhm. Mhm.
fully anointed Amartari Sikh?
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. We're supposed to have inner fortitude before we bring anything to the exterior. And we've come away from that. But you agree that a knife by itself as an object is neutral,
Hmm.
neither good nor bad.
Yep.
So are these 5 energies. Lust, anger, greed, attachment, ego are neutral. They only change from perspective
Yeah.
with the intention that they're being activated with.
Hmm.
If you are unaware of these energies in your body, they will have control over you. Something can trigger your anger, and all of a sudden you are enraged and you turn into like Elmer McFudd, right?
I'll
Red
say the
face.
Hulk. I'm green. I always go green, but yeah, I know what you
I'm
mean.
thinking of Elmer McFudd, okay? Oh, I miss him.
Uh,
And like the rage just takes over you. It's like the Hulk,
mm,
that depiction of
mm,
what happens inside of you
yeah,
when it's like from your feet all the way up to your head. You're just activated with rage and you just want to destroy everything,
yeah.
right? What if you had control over that? How could that anger or that rage be used for good? Isn't that what soldiers and warriors do when they're protecting, when there's justice behind it, right?
It's
But they have
interesting.
a
Yeah.
they have a control over it. So these 5 energies have opposite extremes. You've got the negative and you have the positive.
Mm,
Okay? It's the understanding and the awareness of them. Once you're doing that work, which Gurbani guides you to do, and you practice that, all of a sudden, if a really attractive person walks right in front of you, it would have no impact on your psyche because you're no longer allured by Maya.
mhm,
That's what it comes down to. Do you have control over your psyche and over your consciousness and your energy? And to what level do you have control? And if you haven't done the work, you have no control, which means I have the remote control of you. If I can read you and I can press those buttons,
yeah.
you're fucked.
Mm,
Because I can activate your anger. I can literally, you become a puppeteer. You know how to control people. And that's what happens. And it's a form of manipulation. But if you've done the inner work, and my remote control doesn't work because I can't trigger you and you're unaffected, all of a sudden you've entered your sovereign state. You're unfuckable with,
mhm,
which means that you are now in control. That puts you on a more superior plane to me. There's me thinking, why isn't my remote control working?
yeah.
Because it works on everybody else. I know how to trigger that person's anger. I know how to mess with that person. I know how to make that person cry. But I can't do anything to you. Why? Because you've done the
Mm,
work. And that is the whole principle of Jatsad. Like, calm is the easiest way to take somebody off their path. Easiest way. Maharaj talks about it. So if we're staying in ignorance and we're engaging with Gurbani on a very formal like level, we're not immersing in it. We're just like regurgitating
yeah.
words and spitting them out, but we're not absorbing them and we're not contemplating them and practically applying the teachings, then we will be giving that remote control in somebody else's hands. We won't have that control. And that's what's like it's begun to happen more prominently. There's more and more cases of SA that are coming up in the Sikh community. And at first, when I started the work with Core Voices, so I told you the catalyst was that incident that took place in San Francisco, because through the contemplation, I recognized that my work in this Jivan is different to other people's.
Mhm.
And that's not, I'm not better or worse than anybody else. I'm just who
That's
I
your
am.
journey.
I'm just
That's
who I
what. Yeah,
am, right?
exactly. Yeah.
So I don't put this pressure on other people that this is what you have to do when you move through trauma, but I just know what I needed to do.
Mm,
And what I needed to do was to find purpose through my pain and help others reduce the amount of pain that they have to endure following that road. Because abuse happens, and unfortunately, it will continue to happen. But what we can do is put solutions in place to try to reduce that impact where we can, hopefully, with Maharaj's Kirpa, erase this pattern of abuse, especially in the Sikh community. That's what I would love to see happen. Um, but at least put in adequate measures of support so that the pain that victims are having to endure in silence, invisibly in their bodies, can be reduced in some way. Because trauma sits in our body, it sits in our fascia, it sits in our cells, it changes how we think, it changes how our body um, becomes healthy or unhealthy.
Yeah.
So your body will start to become inflamed and unrecognizable in some ways because you're holding all of this trauma. Your cortisol levels
Oh,
are out
yeah.
the roof, and like everything's out of whack. But physically, the doctors are saying you're fine, but you're fatigued. You've got no energy. Everything aches, and it's all trauma that's sitting inside your body. But nobody's telling you how to move it through. Maharaj is telling you, but nobody's communicating that to us, and we're like missing a link in between. So when that happened in San Francisco, I was faced with two things. What am I going to do about this situation that I've gone through?
Mm-hmm.
And then how do I want to show up right now? So I was given the answer to both of those things, which was that um, something needs to change in the Qawm, in the Panth. There is zero tolerance for sexual abuse, sexual harassment, any form of abuse. Like, we need to do better. And men in the community need to re engage back with actual Sikh principles to understand how to control their calm and their growth, lobh, moh, and hankar, especially their calm, though, because that's the one that's messing all of them up. And there's no accountability to it. So, all of these things need to be changed. How can I give support in those spaces, and what would that support look like? So I had to really, really meditate deep to think about that because I wanted to give solutions, solutions that worked, not just like things that will wash away after a couple of years or,
Yeah.
after the trend's gone. And the other side that I had to contemplate on was this has happened to me. And what is the outcome of this that I want to see? What would if somebody came to me, say I came to you and I said, this has happened to me, what advice would you give me in terms of what am I supposed to do with this now? Like, this has happened to me. What would you say?
So for me, the question is, how are you healing? I'd want to understand. Obviously, finding out this today and the deeper meaning behind core voices,
Hmm.
that is your healing process in a way, right? And I would look at, if I didn't know you, my
Hmm.
first thing would be go and report it,
Right.
right?
That was what I was waiting for. Logically,
Yeah,
that's our programming.
yeah.
Society has told us one and one takes you there, right? That equals two. If you do this, then you do that, then this happens.
Mm,
And we think we're really stupid to think that that
yeah.
actually works and that's what actually happens.
But back to the word conditioning.
Hmm.
That's our current education. We are driven by the Western education, what we've been given, so we don't know any different.
But we do.
Okay.
These
Mm,
systems haven't supported us before. They failed us many times as a South Asian community, as a Punjabi community born and raised in England.
mm-hmm.
It was there was always I can't say it here right
Yeah.
now, but law enforcement was never seen as a friend,
Yeah.
right? Um, so why would we think in this situation it would work? Question, just to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not berating the system, but I am berating the system as well because I've checked both systems in the US and in the UK. The process of reporting
Yeah.
for like domestic violence,
The data
domestic
will show
abuse.
it. Yeah, the data will show it. How many South Asians report versus Caucasians or any other ethnic minority in terms of what, and not just reporting. There may be people that report, but even the cases that have taken to court or somebody's been sentenced are very low.
Hmm. Why though? Why?
Go
The
on.
system doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
System doesn't work
Mm.
because it's not looking at you as a human. Told you about capacity,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to come to that. Okay, we don't have the capacity to hold space. We don't have the right articulation or training or emotional awareness to understand what this requires and what level of sensitivity is needed to make this happen. If those provisions were in place, the statistics on reporting for
Yeah.
these sorts of incidences
Yeah.
would change drastically because victims would feel safer actually making reports. So I decided that I'm going to take legal action. I'm going to make a report.
Mhm.
And I was terrified because it meant, I knew what it meant. I'd studied criminology, so I was like, oh, I'm sort of familiar with how reporting goes and like not fully aware of the system in the US, but kind of, and let me try this because I wanted some sort of justice. I wanted
Yeah.
some sort of accountability, that he's not going to admit this. He's going to just carry on living in plain sight and he's going to harm other people.
Mhm.
And if he harms somebody else, my karam is attached to that
Yeah.
because I didn't stop him. So if I'm enabling him by letting him exist in plain sight, his psychology, his programming is that he will harm again because there was no repercussions to
Mhm.
this.
No consequences, and in a way, he's gonna think I got away with it. Yeah.
Absolutely. This happens far too often.
Mhm.
So my self accountability and responsibility is that, do I want to contribute to somebody else being harmed, knowing that I could have done something about it? And the answer was no. I don't want that. I don't want anybody else to be harmed. And if I can do something about this, it's one person, but one person is enough to make a change. Whatever it takes, I want to do. So I asked Maharaj for the strength to go through with this. Ended up going back to the States, to that area. And it was horrible for me because for a number of years after that, I didn't go to San Francisco because there was just
Yeah.
so much like anxiety and like literally PTSD that was coming back into my body. And I didn't want to go there. I turned down events and so many programs for San Francisco because I would hear the word and it would trigger me. And I was like, fuck that, I don't want to go there.
Mhm.
Then I did my work on myself through the music. I'll come to that. And I prepared myself to go there. So I flew back there. And the process of making the police report was not easy. So um, when I made the initial report, because I didn't use the buzzwords, it didn't get reported
Mhm.
as sexual assault. It got reported as um, false imprisonment, assault, and battery. Those were the two charges. And the officer that took my statement didn't tell me this. I found out afterwards because I friggin' built up the courage to go there to
Yeah.
talk about it.
Mm.
But because I didn't say, I said chest, I didn't say, breasts, right? So because I didn't use the Western terminology, they couldn't understand the cultural language barrier because that's just not how we speak, right?
Mhm.
We go to
Mhm.
the doctors, you don't say that, you say it differently. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
we've
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
programmed differently. So
Mm.
when we're looking at crimes being reported and sensitive crimes, we have to look at what community this person belongs to, the context of them,
But
to understand
where's
where
the
to meet them.
signposting? Where's the signposting?
There
That kind of,
isn't.
where's
There isn't.
the guidance and
All of these structures are built on Western principles and Western patterns, and that's it. There's no room for other ways of thinking, and we're supposed to just get with the program and get on their page. But how can you do that when you are culturally
yeah.
trained
Yeah. Yeah.
differently? You can't
Mm.
do that. So that was one thing that I learned that was really big and really loud in my head that, oh shit, they don't get this. But it was disappointing for me and really infuriating when a few months later I get a call from the detective saying that the DA has turned down the case because it's past the statute of limitation because I'd gone back just over a year afterwards.
Oh my
And I
god.
was like, what do you mean? But the case, sexual assault doesn't have a statute of limitation. And he was like, no, that was not the charge. The charge was false imprisonment and assault and battery. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, excuse me? Nobody told me that.
Yeah.
Nobody told me that. If they'd have told me that when I gave the statement, I would have clarified it right there and then. That was, I went there to report sexual assault because that's what happened.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, oh, well, the officer who took your statement, these were the charges that they filed. So off their own back, they made a decision on what the charges were, even though I had said to them in my way
Mm.
what had happened, which was sexual assault.
Mhm.
So when you're trying to communicate to somebody, they're going to get their perspective. They're going to put their interpretation on it, on your words. And that's what the legal system will do.
Mm.
It's how they're going to interpret what you're saying, unless you're saying exactly what they expect you to say
Yeah.
and it checks the boxes. And I was like, this is so messed up. This is so messed up. So now I have to deal with that. I have to think about what am I going to do here now? And then they said, if we do move any further with this, like say if we can do anything about this, then there's no evidence. It's a he said, she said. And there's because it's over a year ago, we don't know if there was CCTV footage, we don't have any
Oh,
of that
no.
stuff, and what are we gonna do?
Right.
And I'm like, you're the police. You tell me.
Yeah.
I'm coming to you. So now you're putting the onus on the victim who's built up, who's been through the thing, who's had to process the trauma, who's had to build up the courage to come knocking on your door saying, come help me because this fucker did this to me.
Yeah. And you've created totally wrong accounts for it and reported it incorrectly, and now you
Right?
have to manage all of that as well.
So all of
Yeah.
this falls on the victim. Bear in mind, I didn't really tell anybody what I was doing. So I'm doing this all by myself and
Yeah.
I'm carrying this emotionally all by myself too.
Mhm.
And I was like, fuck, what am I going to do now? Like, I don't want him to get away with this because I know, and I had heard through the grapevine other women that had been harassed by him in the past. And I was like, he will definitely do something again.
Mhm.
And I need to put a stop to it. Like, I felt a responsibility around that.
See, now you feel about the older people that were in your group, the rage they had and what they would
Yeah.
have done to him, which
I
would have been,
understand.
and that's where the
But
law
then they would
comes
have ended up frigging locked
exactly.
up and
Oh.
but I then went back, contemplated, and I asked them what the options were.
Mhm.
And they said to me that if there's a way, like, would you be willing to have a conversation with him? I was like, are you crazy? Are you crazy? Have you lost your mind? Do you
Mm.
understand what you're asking me? And he was like, the detective was like, just hear me out. This is on the phone.
Right.
Yeah. And I was like,
Huh.
what? He said, if you'd be willing to have a phone conversation
Yeah.
with him that's through a secure line that would be recorded, if there's anything that he says,
Oh, okay.
then that could be used as evidence.
Like a wire in effect, yeah. So they're
But,
trying to
so
get other evidence out of the person that done
yeah,
it, right?
but through the phone, not as a
Yeah,
like a
sure.
because I was like in person, hell
No,
no,
yeah.
like no,
Mhm.
forget about it. And they left me with that, and for 6 months, I was in internal chaos.
I can imagine.
Like, what the fuck? Like, do you understand what you're asking? And then, how would you ask that of a victim
Mm.
who's still processing, who wants justice, and they're coming to the legal system to get justice, but now you're saying to them, you've got to have dialogue with this person, and then what the hell does that even look like? Because if you don't know how to regulate your emotions, that would be a that would make you as the victim look worse because you'd probably end up just effing and
Yeah,
blinding at
that's
the
right. Yeah.
person and hurling abuse at them, and they're going to deny everything. So it doesn't serve any purpose and it makes everything worse for you. And I was like, I have to be smart about this then. So I have to really, really have a grip on myself, which meant I literally did months and months of meditation on my part to anchor myself internally, preparing for this one thing, knowing how much it was going to trigger me and what intuitively I wanted to do or wanted to say, but to refrain from that and to operate from a place of like more firmness.
Yeah.
6 months later, I gave the detective a call back. I blanked him, like ghosted him for 6 months because I couldn't think about it. I didn't want to be reminded of it. I didn't want to talk about it or engage in any dialogue in any way whatsoever. 6 months later, I called him and I said, I think I can do it.
Right.
And he was like, okay, we need you to be here to do it from the station. And I was like, okay. So I told him when I was going to be back in the States, and then I made a plan to be there. And I went there to the station, and then we made the call, and he didn't answer. And I was like, I was vexed.
Mm.
I was vexed. It's like all of
Yeah,
this,
of course.
and I'm there, and it's ringing, and I'm fucking sweating,
Yeah, yeah,
and I'm breaking it, and I'm like, oh, I've got to keep myself together. And he doesn't answer. I was like, what the fuck is this joke? And then I was having my internal dialogue with God, and I was like, Maharaj, what is this? What is happening? And why
He
are
throws
you having a
challenges,
joke?
and the challenges keep coming.
Yes. So because my number came on his phone,
Hmm.
so the call was done in a way that it was like from me to his
Yeah,
phone. Um, I knew in my gut when I leave, he's going to call me back. So I tried to stay at the station. I was like, I'll stay another half an hour. Literally 10 minutes after I left, he called me on my mobile. And I was like, I don't want to answer. I don't want to speak to him. So I didn't answer the call,
mm,
but I text him. No, yeah, I text him. I was like, I can't talk right now. You can text me. So then I've got a written form. Like it's about collecting evidence, right?
hmm,
So there's written communication. And then he was like, oh, I'm in India, blah, blah, blah. I'll be back in like a few days and I can call you. And I was like, okay, yeah, I need to speak to you. I just kept it very vague,
yeah,
didn't say anything much, told the detective. Then I had to plan to go back a week later. So it's like I was being tortured emotionally. Like it was just being stretched out and out and out. And I hated it. So now I am the victim. I am in the body of the victim. I'm in the experience of the victim, and all of these layers of injustice are just growing. There's no relief or ease in this process or in the system or
yeah.
structure.
The bags are getting heavier.
Yes,
Yeah,
and I've got no other support around me either. Um, so the reason I'm sharing this is for context that everybody who's watching and listening, who's going to have that same response when somebody comes to them, go and report it.
yeah, yeah.
You're going to get justice. I need you to understand it's not a linear process.
Mm.
And unless you're giving multiple layers of support to this victim, it is almost impossible for somebody to do that. I have a deep spiritual practice, and it was Guru that was with me, that guided me and that gave me the support that I needed. Otherwise, I would have bitched out easily. I would have said, nope, not doing it. Sorry, somebody else's job. I just need to heal myself and I need to go focus on myself and peace out. And I would have just done that. But because I had Maharaj at my back, I was able to continue to take small steps forward, even though it was so challenging. But
Yeah.
like that's what courage truly is can you reach to the deepest part of yourself and pull out the goodness in a moment that is challenging you like to the highest degree. Went back a week later, I'm in the station, make the call, he picks up, and I now have to pretend to have a conversation with him. No, sorry, I'm telling you the story wrong. No, that is what
Mm.
happened. That is what happened. He was in his car, I was in the station. So like this is the thing of trauma, like it can fragment your memory a little bit.
Yeah.
So the story can go a little bit back to front. But I was in the station and he was in his car. I think he was driving to work or something. And in the process of the conversation, I had to just really ground myself, keep myself centered. And I know how challenging that was for me. And I'm a pretty strong person.
Hmm.
So if you don't have that inner fortitude and you are already falling apart, it is almost impossible to go through that process
Yeah.
because it is very unforgiving.
It's two, isn't it? That, like, say you're either gonna break down
Hmm.
or you're gonna rage, and it's being able to control the rage and control the breakdown to have that conversation.
It's hard to do that when when it's
It's
such an
yeah,
emotionally charged thing and you've been through it, and now you're
yeah,
speaking to the person who's harmed you,
mm,
right? And my brain is thinking about all these components simultaneously. That how would somebody else? And I'm thinking of people that I've worked with through Core Voices, who are much more like emotionally, I'm going to say, delicate or sensitive, because then they're just not able to
but
like deal with
that
things.
comes with time and education. When people say emotionally intelligent,
But
the
it's also like
intelligence is
personality too. Like
yeah,
some people, they really struggle with hardship, and it's not
mm,
because they're lazy or they're afraid, but they've just been conditioned differently.
yeah,
So if you put that sort of a person into these circumstances, they wouldn't last. They would absolutely fall to pieces,
Mhm.
which means that there has to be like a fort of support around them
Framework, yeah.
to give them the ability and the courage to get to that place of reporting and doing this and speaking, like hearing the voice of that person in your ear, like it sends a different memory through your body, and it's like it makes you want to throw up. And I was having all sorts of reactions that I was noticing in my body, but I have to function now and I have to stay sharp with what I'm saying and not fuck it up. And you know, my objective was to get the evidence.
Yeah.
That was my objective.
Yeah.
I didn't care about anything else. And I said to myself, I can do this. You know, when you psych yourself up and you go to the gym, I was literally doing that. I was like, I can fucking do this. I can do this. I can do this. It doesn't matter. I can do this. And I was like talking to myself like that. I'm trying to get myself into the mode, and I'm there and I'm speaking to him, and he's giving me his whole duksuk, and I wanted to just tell him to shut the fuck up. I was like, I don't give a shit. That's what I wanted to say. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And I just, did a very formal conversation. And then we got to that point, and then we talked. I said, remember that day when this happened? And and he was like, yes. And he had joy in his voice. Like it was something that we were about to reminisce about, and maybe something was going to move forward. That was the vibe I got from his voice. And then when we went into it a little bit, he was shocked that I wasn't participating in that situation.
But at this point, had he been already spoken to by the police for the other charges,
No,
for the imprisonment or anything like that?
no, because the DA dropped them. The DA dropped the charges
So
because
he's not been
no,
approached
he's
by the
oblivious
police?
to everything.
Okay,
Yes.
right.
So they would need some evidence in order
Mhm.
to put a case, in order to then approach him,
Right.
right? And at that moment of realization, I guess, he was like, "Can I call you back? Can I call you back?" And I was like, "No, you can't call me back because I'm not going to answer your call. You either talk to me now or we don't talk. Simple as that." And then I can hear him throwing up.
Mhm.
So he pulled his car over. Apparently, he's throwing up, and I was like, "Is this his body having a reaction because he's being called out? Is this body having a reaction because he's genuinely in shock that my experience was different to what he imagined?" You know, for him, he thought that I was participating in this situation and that I enjoyed this situation.
Mm.
And when I went through the details of that, like then I got angry. I
Of
was
course, yeah.
like, what on earth made you think that? Like, what in my body language? If I didn't speak to you and I didn't say that I wanted this, what in my body language gave you that idea? And he was like, I just thought you wanted it. I thought that was, and I was like, how does that make sense? If I haven't given you a direct signal, there was no consent, there was no welcoming of, yes, please come over here and,
Mhm.
I want to get intimate with you. Like nothing whatsoever from me because I'm not even fucking looking at you. I'm putting instruments away and I'm doing my thing. Like,
Yeah.
where was the signal? Where was the signal? And then this was like led to a later contemplation that what was going on in his mind to read that room so differently?
Yeah.
Or was that bullshit he was spewing to me to justify his actions? Like, what's going on in the mind of a person who can engage in these sorts of acts and
But
then justify them?
so there you go. It's like we were talking earlier, right? Accountability.
Hmm,
He's not taking accountability.
absolutely
So
not.
straight away, he's going down the accountability ladder and making excuses and trying to justify
Hmm,
what he's done and his point of view.
hmm.
But the point is, he's still not accepting or saying, yes, this actually happened.
Hmm.
Or did he actually say that on the phone to say, where did he get to after he's pulled over?
So after he like whatever threw up or whatever, then the conversation continued, and my objective was I what did I do? I think I went through the process. I said, "Do you remember this?" And he said, "Yes." And I was like, "And then what happened?" So I was getting him to give his
Hmm.
interpretation of it,
Yeah.
and then I was correcting. I was like, "No,
Hmm.
this is what it was for me." And there was like realizations for him, or so it appeared. Some of them seemed genuine, I'm going to say,
Hmm.
some of them, but I question it. And basically, at the end of the conversation, everything that I had put down in my report as the assault, he had admitted to on the phone by saying, yes, I did that. Yes, I remember that. Like, we were doing this. No, you were doing that.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing that. You were doing that. And then that reframing. And because he's now verbally admitted to this, that was what I needed. And then it took things forward. But the reason I shared this is because men's brains work logically. I have three brothers, okay? Lots of like men in my life, and they all think in a similar kind of pattern, which is very like it always leans towards the logic. Everything has to make sense. It has to be measurable, or women think more with emotions, and there's a little bit more fluidity or even chaos sometimes in how they can think. Um, so it means when women turn to men, men will provide a logical solution because that feels like the right answer. So you gave the perfect response when I asked you that if I came to you with said issue, you would say go report it because that's what the system is there to do, to provide support or solution for such incidents like this.
Yeah.
The truth of it is this, what I've just shared now, and it is important for me to share this. I haven't actually talked about this before in that detail in a setting like this. Because if you don't understand what the experience is actually like for somebody on the receiving, like the user end of reporting to the police, your mind will not comprehend how difficult it actually is, which is why the statistics are so low, which is why it's so underreported, because the barriers to access are vast. Then, when you add in the cultural nuances and the cultural differences, it increases further. So, all of this now leads us to core voices, understanding that this is what the playing field is. What do we need? This is me right now as a British born Punjabi Sikh woman. What do I need to give me the support so that I can heal through this trauma, so I can get the support and I can get to a place of being at more peace within myself?
Yeah.
What does that look like? And what does accountability look like in my community? Because as defective as the community is, I'm still very loyal to my community. I love Sikhi, I love the Panth, I love Punjabiness, I love all of these things.
Yeah.
So I have a duty of care as well, but it's not my sole responsibility. I can do an element of the work. So Core Voices was intended to create a space of safety, recognizing what is needed in such dialogue when somebody's coming to share something vulnerable and something difficult. What sort of a container is needed for them to just share? Nothing else, no solutions, no advice, no counseling, no nothing,
Yeah.
but just for you to like ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਅੰਦਰੋਂ ਉਹ ਗੱਲ ਕੱਢ ਲਵੋ, to just get it out. What does that require? That was the very, very, very elementary level, है ना? And the second layer was looking at solutions in the community, like what is needed. And when I started to have conversations with friends of mine who were prabandhaks different gurdwara across the UK, and there was two very differing responses. One was utter denial. You're
Yeah.
lying, this is bullshit, doesn't happen, making it up. Other side was, we understand, but we just we don't know what to do and how to deal with this. Like, what are we talking about here? How does this work? And the ones who were in this plane of denial, they said, if what you're saying is true, show us. If it's that big an issue, like ek do jinniyan naal shayad hoya hoga, you're saying it happens all the time, everywhere, to everybody. And I was like, wow, like talk about like making this conversation more difficult. Like, talk to me as a logical human being right now. Don't blow it out of proportion. They said, bring us all of these victims that you're talking about. We want to hear it from them. ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਮੂੰਹੋਂ ਸੁਣਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ. And I said very respectfully, very firmly, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to parade around a bunch of victims just for you to re-traumatize them, because I know exactly what you're going to say to them. What clothes were you wearing? What did you say to him? How long did you know this person for? How did you look at him? Were you sitting close to him? Like, what did you do to welcome this or to invite
To
this?
justify everything.
Because in their minds, there's women are seducing these men who are then their abusers, right? So that's how they've justified it in their mind. And they said, we want to see, because if we can't see it, then we don't believe you. you're lying, you're exaggerating.
Mhm.
ਅਸੀਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨਾ. And I went back and I was scratching my head and I was like, okay, what is the solution to this? If this is a problem, there's a solution to it. So I said, okay, I need to think like a man right now. I need to come to your side of the table to look from that perspective. What's going to process in my mind and justify the gravitas of what I'm trying to share? So it has to be something that's quantifiable.
Mhm.
And this is where my academic background kicks in. I was like, hey, okay,
Yeah.
let's do a survey, put it out there.
Mhm.
So I got one or two of my friends, one from Warwick University, one from Birmingham University, and the three of us got together, put together a sequence of questions for a survey. And we put the questions together from an academic perspective as well, and created a survey through Core Voices, launched it through social media, and campaign went wild. At the beginning, before the campaign launched, I was getting phone calls and threats and death threats and other stuff like you're going to take you're making Sikhs look bad and ਅਸੀਂ ਇੰਨੇ ਸਾਲਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਮਿਹਨਤ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ to make Sikhs look so good in society and everything you're doing is going to bring all of that crashing down and ਤੂੰ ਸਾਡੀ ਬਦਨਾਮੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਆ ਬੇਇੱਜ਼ਤੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਆ and you're making it up and blah, I'm doing it for clout or whatever and I was
Mhm.
like it's okay. I understand I'm going to ruffle
Yeah.
feathers and this is a very, very sensitive issue and it's going to make people feel
Everyone's
a particular
entitled
way.
to their opinion, but it's their opinion.
But it's like we're still backward in some ways. Like when you say the word sex,
Mhm.
all of a sudden like people get like weird in Punjabi spaces and especially in a gurdwara. So if
Mhm.
when you're saying sexual abuse, all they're hearing is sex. And then all of they're like dysregulated, like no, don't look up, don't talk to them, don't make eye contact, and let's not talk about this thing. And it's that childishness or
Yep.
immaturity. And I'd like to speak to adults. I'd like to say, hey, we can be mature, we can have a conversation, and what I'm talking about is something serious. So I launched this survey, and within the first couple of weeks, we had like 300 responses internationally. So in 2 weeks, that's massive. And
Mm.
then I think it was live for about a month initially, and we had close to 700 responses. Then it overlapped with the farmers' protest, the first farmers' protest,
Right. Yeah.
and I was contacted by several community leaders that I have respect for, and they said, "Look, right now, maybe you could just kind of put a pin in that for this moment until the farmers' protest is done, and then you can pick that back up again because it'll contradict the support we're trying to get. Because this side you're saying these guys are fucked up and they're abusive, like in their own community, and then there we've got on the front lines we've got farmers out there trying to protest and they're asking for support for their and dignity for their livelihood. And I was like, I can respect that. I can show. I can take one for the team.
Okay.
And in a month to get 700 responses was massive anyway, right?
I must say, everything you're telling me so far, you mentioned the word courage earlier.
Mm.
This in itself, you're on a mission. You're doing this mission, and now you're finding all these barriers. Guru Sahib never makes these journeys easy, right? And there is a lot of courage. You've got a lot of courage. I must say, just listening to the story, commendable. But carry on. Sorry.
I credit that to Guru.
Yeah.
Like whatever I am is as a result of my practices,
Mm-hmm.
and that comes through Sikhi. Without that, I'm nothing. Like
Mm-hmm.
nothing.
And that's where courage should come from.
100%, 100%. Couldn't do it without it. And we're at the survey. Now I've got the statistics. I was like, you know what? This is enough. I can go with this. And according to the data, there were some reports from males, but the vast majority of victims were women.
Yeah.
And there was so much sadness, like when I was reading some of these, because there were no, they were just like tick boxes and some like multiple choice. And then at the end of the
Yeah.
questionnaire,
Open question.
I left an open
Yeah.
space
Mm-hmm.
for anybody, and it's confidential. Like there was no name on this. People from different parts of the world, and one specifically, which like really it made me cry. Like I cried so hard because I could feel the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an auntie in her 60s or 70s, and she wrote out her whole story, what happened to her, and everything I already knew about how women talk amongst women and not with the men, like she reiterated all of that back to me, and she was like thanking me so much. She was like, "Thank you, thank you, thank you," like
Mm.
sentences of it that I thought that I was going to take this to the grave with me. I thought that I would just die with this inside of me, but
Mm.
you've allowed me to take this out of my body, and I don't have to die with this inside me. And I just, I want to cry right now. Like that's to give that space. I was like, I didn't know that this would do that for somebody,
Mhm.
but just having that space,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
just a questionnaire,
Mm.
going out,
It's an avenue.
and
It's
somebody
yeah.
saying that
Mm.
I was going to take this to my grave, thinking that's it. No, it
Mm.
will live in my body forever. But to have that outlet, for it to be released from the body, is massive.
Yeah.
And when we're looking at trauma recovery, it is about releasing the trauma out of the body, like from the mental body, from the fascia, through our voice, through all of the components. Like you have to take it out of the body because it stays in there if you don't do anything
Yeah.
with it, and it creates disease. So that highlighted to me how important it was to do this work, but how to do it with sensitivity. You can't fix everything with a hammer. And a lot of, I'll say, women who have worked in these spaces in the community before come out very angry, and they're not able to articulate what they're trying to do. And it's more destructive than it is helpful.
Yeah.
There's been many incidents in the Midlands where there's like particular groups who have tried to do work in the community, but they end up creating more damage than good. And the people who get hurt the most are the victims
Yeah.
because they get caught up in the mess, and then they're given a glimmer of hope, and then it's taken away, and then they're just left by themselves suffering in the same shit.
That's
So,
what academia is so important. Trying to understand
mhm,
what you're doing and how you're doing and what the repercussions would be if you do it incorrectly.
mhm,
That's so important for any type of research. And from what you're saying in terms of one survey, one avenue, if you can get that many responses,
mhm,
it also shows you how many people are holding this back.
precisely. And that was just for a month. Like, imagine if we actually did it as a full campaign and I
Mm.
had support. I know that those numbers would look really different. So, um, that kind of, I took that information to the Gurdwara
How
and I
many
said,
years
these
ago
are
was
the,
that? So that's after the farmer protest. So what's
that
that?
was like
Only if three?
2020.
Yeah. So okay.
Was it? That was when the farmers' protest happened, right?
Yeah, about 2021. So yeah, even if you say let's round it off to 4 years
Maybe,
ago.
yeah, maybe
Yeah,
2021. Sorry, the
yeah,
time frame in my mind. Yeah.
yeah.
So whenever it correlated with the first farmers' protest, that was when we took down the survey. It's back up on the Core Voices website, so people sometimes still fill in those forms. And I'm still collecting that data, and I'll be using it as well to actually put together an academic report. Um, but I took that information and that data now to those Prabandhaks, and we had a meeting. And I did like a presentation, and I gave them the information. All of a sudden, now the temperature of the room was very different,
Right. Because you got
and
data.
exactly.
Like you said, men logical brain, they want to see the data.
But
But
for me,
yeah,
that's common sense. It's
yeah,
like I need to understand my audience.
yeah.
If I'm speaking to you from a different perspective and you're not able to understand me, do I have the capacity to change my perspective so that
Mm,
I can understand you?
mm,
And often our egos will clash in that space because I'm like, no, you need to come to this side of the
mm.
table. But if I've got the capacity and it can help me get to the objective quicker, why wouldn't I do that? But it is about the removal of ego.
That's right, yeah.
So unless you can do that, it doesn't
Mm,
work.
mm,
And that's where like things generally fall apart. So um, when I was then given that, what do I say, support or acknowledgement that, okay, yes, this has happened. And then all of a sudden, those people, those men, those Prabandhaks in the room started opening up, sharing that this has happened. There's been a couple
mm.
of cases, and a few of them were honest and humble enough to admit to me that ਸਾਡੇ ਤੋਂ ਗਲਤੀਆਂ ਹੋ ਗਈਆਂ because ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀਗਾ how to deal with it. So we ended up silencing the victim.
Yeah.
And that was a common theme because they needed to protect their structure and the infrastructure as well. And this highlighted another issue. A lot of the granthis or the sevadars that are employed in the gurdwara are undocumented.
Right. Yeah.
So if there is an allegation against them, there's no DBS
Illegal
check.
immigrants, yes. Yeah.
There's no DBS check
Mm,
because they're not here,
Yeah.
right?
So
Um,
big thing for safeguarding. We talk about places of worship, we talk about policies and procedures.
mhm.
How many of our places of worship are actually following that? That's a whole nother subject that I do want to
Yes,
touch on at some point, probably in the future. But how are we conducting legal aspects of places of worship?
poorly right now.
Mm,
But it highlighted that issue because they were worried about the Prabandhaks were worried about the repercussions on them
yeah.
if the victim were to report this person and that person's undocumented, but they're employed by the institution's accountable. So to avoid that, they brought it onto the victim and said,
Mm,
ਗਲਤੀ ਨਾਲ ਹੱਥ ਲੱਗ ਗਿਆ ਜਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਗਲਤਫਹਿਮੀ ਹੋ ਗਈ or whatever, and then it's easier to have one family separate from the gurdwara and not come, even though that person's now in trauma and it's unjust what has actually happened, or it protects the bigger picture. So
yeah.
self-preservation became more important than actual truth and justice, and that was a pattern, and it is a pattern. And the gurdwara has often protected abusers as well for that reason, or worse than that, when the community, this has happened in the UK in recent years, okay,
Mm,
and it is disgusting, and I don't support it, is that the community stood to support a known predator because he's a pracharak and he's famous, and they justify it in their mind through the delusion of religion that if a banda inna paat karda, inna kirtan karda, inni soni katha karda ya, how could he do something like this? You're lying. O te inna rab nal judya hoya.
mm,
Bro, come on. Anybody can put on a facade. And if anybody knows how to pretend, it's our community because we've been trained from a young age
yeah.
to do this bakwas. But when we're looking at truth and authenticity, it takes a lot of courage for a victim to come forward. Nobody's going to come forward into public sight and berate themselves just for the hell of it. There's something to that story, and it's about doing an investigation, understanding what's actually happened here. And there was a couple of particular individuals in the UK who had allegations that were true, and some of the structures, some of the Gurdwara organizations supported them to protect them because they bring in money to the system.
Wow.
So,
There's going to be a lot of people watching this. Yeah. And
and they're going to hate me
I'm
for
I'm
saying
I'm
all
just saying
this.
it is a taboo subject for people because they don't want to hear it. They don't want to accept it,
I'm
right?
going to get cancelled.
I'm just gonna say at this point in time, where can people find you? No,
Hiding in a cave at this
exactly.
rate.
So I wanna kind of encourage that courage, make it even more. Where can people find you? If the people wanted support,
Hmm.
I'm on the other side. The
Mhm,
ones that are the victims that want a voice.
mhm.
Where can they find you?
Through my social media is probably the easiest way.
Yeah,
Core Voices or my page on Instagram,
yeah,
through the Core Voices website. We have a contact us form on there, and that's the best way to get in touch with me. And where there are genuine cases, I try to put people in touch with resources that are in their local area to get the right type of support, folks that I would work with,
yeah.
not just like random stuff,
So
but
we're not looking like signposting to Samaritans or anything like that. We're
no,
talking
no, no,
more
no, no, no.
Pacific, aren't we?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. And now, actually, in these last few years in the UK, we've come a long way. There's a lot more organizations doing work in the space of mental health. Like Sick Helpline is incredible. You've got Sick Your Mind, and they're providing support and resources for mental health and mental well-being through a Gurmat perspective as well. And you've got trained therapists in that space, so it takes away the cultural barriers and it gives them, like, you don't have to give all of that framing and context of religion, spirituality, culture, and all of that. It's understood because you're talking to somebody who's from your community,
yeah,
who's born and raised in England as well. So
yeah, yeah.
it makes it a lot easier to have those conversations. And I've got a lot of so I work as a community partner with a lot of government agencies as well to provide support in the space of violence against women and girls, as well as modern day slavery and human trafficking as well, because that interlinks into some of these um, topics as well. So
Hmm.
those are things that Core Voices is working on at the moment. And I haven't been doing a lot publicly and putting stuff out there on social media like I did when we started. It's been more behind the scenes and low key. I've been building frameworks of curriculum, and this was the solution and is the solution that I'm providing to Sikh organizations and to Gurdwara and other faith spaces as well. So I did a pilot program here, sorry, in England. I was going to
Right.
say in London,
Yeah.
in England.
Yeah.
And it was a process of training for folks who have been through harm and experienced harm and want to work through that and go through the process of healing. Education for the wider community and sangat and parents to be aware of what signs to look for,
Yeah.
because the signs are not always obvious, but if you know what to look for, you could recognize them.
Yeah.
And then on an organizational, institutional level, like the training and awareness and information that's needed beyond just basic, like the legal requirements of safeguarding, beyond that, what does that mean in our structures? What does that mean in Gurdwara? And what does that require of us as a sangat and as a community in terms of accountability? Hana? So I built a curriculum which I'd written back then, and since I've developed it a lot more and improved it, and it's still going through improvement. And it's actually going to be part of my master's thesis.
Right.
So it'll be formalized through an academic framework,
Yeah.
and that will then be available for any organization or faith-based institution to pick up and actually use. And if you follow the framework, you would be able to. The goal is to eradicate.
It's tools. It's like anything. It's allowing people tools to use to help.
Yes. So if you can
Yeah.
take sexual harm, sexual harassment, and
Mm-hmm.
sexual abuse out of your institution, that is a massive, massive, massive step forward. And with one of the schools actually in Wolverhampton, it was a Khalsa school, we did a curriculum for sexual harassment that I wrote out the curriculum along with feedback from the school, and we delivered it as a pilot program to the kids so that they're aware of what sexual harassment is and what qualifies that and where to look for it and how to stay safe and the harms of social media and what language is sexual harassment, what to do if you've
Yeah.
been through it. And education is the way that we can bring change. That is my bottom line, and that is who we are as Sikh as well. We're about education, but for me that's the practical solution to all of these things. There's processes of unlearning that we need to go through on an emotional, psychological, and social level.
And cultural.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
that comes into
Mm.
the social. But
Yeah.
once we go through that, we can retrain our
Mhm.
brain in terms of how it operates, and there's ways to optimize it. For me, that's what I experienced through the music is
Mhm.
through the power of Kirtan, how you can actually rewire your neural pathways.
Stop right there. I want to take another short break. Right. I want to take another short break because that subject is
Mhm.
very close to my heart,
Mm.
as you know, and I think that is a great process of healing as well. So let's come back after the break.
Hi, I'm Charlene Hanley and I tutor the Level 5 Audio-Visual Technician Apprenticeship at Blue Lion Training Academy. If you're interested in a creative journey, this course will help you build real skills in growth. Enrol now and start building your future at www.bluelionta.com.
I was so eager to get back into the conversation about music because that's really close to my heart.
Mm.
And obviously, core voices, right? Now voices, obviously we spoke about the fundamentals behind what you do. Healing's really a big aspect of any type of trauma. And I've always found that music, for me, especially as well, when I was younger, um, when I was learning rags and going to the Gurdwara and learning music, that actually became my healer in a way, right? I think I touched on it earlier. One of my favorite rags is Sivaranjani rag, right? Because you just bend those kormal swords, and it just brings out the emphasis of music, and I love it. What would you say? How has music kind of been combined in your life, but also within core voices as well?
Okay, in my life, wow. Truth, I wouldn't be here without it right now. And this isn't the
Mm.
version of me that you would have gotten if music wasn't a part of my life now. Music hasn't always been a part of my life. It was like from my late teens, early 20s onwards when I got involved
Okay.
in Sikh music.
Hmm.
And my purpose to learn wasn't to become a musician, and I don't call myself a musician. I don't choose to be proficient in that way. My purpose was kirtan. I wanted to converse with my guru.
Right.
I wanted to understand Gurbani in a practical way, and that was what I was seeking. And the teacher I crossed paths with at that time told me that the only way to do that is by experiencing it, which means I need to pick up an instrument. And the only reason I was apprehensive to pick up an instrument was because before that, I'd always been told, don't play music. Like, you can't sing to save your life. And
Right.
I couldn't keep a beat to save my life
Yeah.
either. So, like, sur and tal were not in my language at all or in my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So, I had to learn about sur and about tal and all of those things. And I did that through the process of not only learning kirtan, but I was fortunate enough to have learnt the pre-colonial version of kirtan that is
Oh, wow.
authentic to Sikh practice.
Yeah.
So I didn't learn the Vajja. I didn't learn to sing just like filmy tunes or whatever. My dad tried to send me to Vajja class, but that teacher kind of like
Yeah.
washed his hands of me. He was like, this isn't for you. So I would just sit around in the corner with my friends, have a laugh and a joke, and go home. And that was Wednesday evenings for me.
So was it a
So-
string instrument?
Yes, it was when the journey actually began.
Mm-hmm.
It was the strings. And these are the string instruments that belong to Sikh heritage that were blessed by our gurus that they used for kirtan.
Mm-hmm.
And I was taught kirtan in rag. So the rag is present on every shabad in Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj.
Which
And
instrument was it that you learned first then?
Dilruba.
Okay.
So the practice of singing kirtan in rag, understanding what the rags mean, and then expressing them on the strings. It was at the beginning, of course, very challenging because I'm learning everything from scratch, from new.
Yeah.
And I had to pay a lot of attention and put in extra effort because everybody else understood music and was more like musically inclined or gifted. And I absolutely was not.
Wow.
So I had to work much harder, but I chose to do the hard work and put in the effort because I wanted that communication. I wanted to be able to have dialogue with my guru, and there was something inside me telling that kirtan is that way for me.
Remind me what instrument by Maryada used to play?
Pai Mardana.
Mardana. Yeah.
Rabab.
Okay.
So my last name is Rababan. That's where it's taken from.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And Rabab means a limb of God or an extension of God. So, yes, that's why I wanted that name. It's like, that's what I am.
Interesting.
And the Rabab that Pai Mardana played was not the Afghani Rabab. Like now,
Mhm.
in current like framework of Kirtan, we're seeing the string instruments emerge. When I started, you wouldn't have seen them anywhere. There was just a couple of people in London who were teaching them. And even in India, they weren't so prominent, not how we see it now. So the revival is happening, and that gives me joy to see that. But still some further work to do on that. But the string instruments and the whole practice of singing in rag was really difficult to actually encourage or convince the wider Sikh Sangat to reclaim, which was bizarre to me. Because when I found out that the harmonium isn't an instrument that belongs, it doesn't even belong in Indian music.
Mhm.
It doesn't even belong on that continent. It comes from Europe.
Yeah.
When I found that out, I felt lied to. I was a bit angry, if I'm honest with you, that aaj tak everything that I've learned and everything my elders that have told me is untrue.
Yeah.
Because this doesn't even belong to us. It wasn't even around anywhere close to the time of the gurus. So why has it now dominated the entire field of not just Kirtan, Indian classical music, Sufi music too, like across North India, that is the instrument you see everywhere. But the string instruments that were indigenous to the land there, they were erased. But the rabab I was telling you about that we see now coming up in Kirtan is the Afghani rabab. That comes from Afghanistan. That's why it's called Afghani rabab.
Mhm.
So we're like still doing some layers of ignorance. We're like, because it's rabab, let's just play it, and that's the rabab.
Right.
But there are multiple different variations of rababs. And the Sikh rabab was very specific. is from the Sikh Rabab that later the Sarod evolved. So it has a similar shape,
Yeah.
length, and playing technique as well is similar. The difference is that on the Sikh Rabab, also known as the Farandiya Rabab, it's called Farandiya Rabab because the person who actually made the initial Rabab under instruction of Guru Nanak Maharaj, the instrument maker was called Pai Faranda. So it's sometimes referred to as Farandiya Rabab or Sikh Rabab. You'll see it in like my pictures and
And
stuff.
how many instruments of those string instruments are played by hand versus a bow?
So Rabab is plucked,
Yeah.
then you've got 4 with a bow, and then 1 is percussion.
Okay.
And that particular type of Rabab was different. So, all right, let me just backtrack a little bit. Bhai Mardana already played Rabab when his path crossed with Guru Nanak. He was already a
And that
musician.
was plucked. That was never with a bow, right?
Yeah, plucked.
Yep.
Because they talk about Jeel, and a
Mhm.
Jeel is a Java, which is the plectrum. So, Bhai Mardana played a different type of Rabab, known as a Drupadi Rabab, which was like smaller in length. The fingerboard was wider. It had 6 main strings, gut strings, and why or what the need was, I don't know. All I can tell you is what history tells us for fact is that a new Rabab was created.
Mhm.
If Guru Nanak Maharaj was in a rush, this is something I think about. Yeah. If they were in a rush to hit the road and get the message out there and do the work, they could have said to their homeboy, hey, you've already got an instrument. Let's hit the road. Let's go. Let's do the thing. But they felt a need to have a new Rabab created, an instrument that didn't exist in the world before. To its sound, its dimension, it was longer in length. It had 5 strings as the main strings on it. And once that Rabab was created, it was paid for by Bibi Nanaki. She paid for it. She gifted it to Guru Nanak.
Yeah.
And then Guru Nanak gave it to Bhai Mardana. And it was that Rabab that went with Guru Nanak Maharaj and Bhai Mardana from the first Udasi onwards. I don't think that any of that is by chance. I think there's precision and there's thought and there's meaning behind all of this. Because if it was just about a plucked instrument, they already had that. They
Yeah.
could, Bhai Mardana had a different type of a Rabab. They could have done with that.
Mm.
They didn't. They had something new created. For me, that's like symbolic in so many ways that they're trying to create a new way of thinking and a new way of being, which means that it has to be a new frequency that vibrates on.
Exactly what I was thinking in my thoughts just there
Mm.
was vibration. Because if now what you're doing is you're changing the pattern of playing,
Mm-hmm.
there's got to be a different frequency of
Absolutely.
vibration that you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to create.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the truth or the answer,
Yeah.
but just through rational thought and just trying to go through the process of understanding and elimination, like what could be the reasoning behind this?
Mhm.
Because, like I said, if it was simply about getting on the road and helping people understand and come to awareness and inner awakening, they could have done that with anything. But
I mean,
no,
when you're doing sound engineering, like when we're doing sound engineering up in the studio, we look at frequencies, right? And the frequencies can vary. So if you're looking at the lower levels from bass, those bass frequencies are going to give you different vibrations. So again, from those instruments, if they're plucking different notes, it's going to give you those different vibrations. So
Mhm.
there's got to be some scientific relationship here for why they changed the instrument.
Absolutely. Like I said, none of
Uh,
it's by chance.
yeah.
And if we still are were moving in the vibration that Guru Nanak began back then, that's why we're sick now. We're choosing this path or exploring this path because the seeds they had sown then are still reaping fruit in some way now.
Hmm.
And that's through the frequency, through the vibration. So there's meaning behind it all, there's precision behind it all, there's foresight behind it all. And we are the ones who are not able to see and understand that fully. But we can try if we look deeper, if we contemplate deeper, like things reveal themselves. And thinking about these things fascinates me. And I always just wondered about that. None of it's by chance, which means it's precise. So if from Guru Nanak Maharaj up until Guru Gobind Singh Ji, other instruments were created, some that were created brand new again. So
Hmm.
Saranda was brand new. Taus and Dilruba and the Jodi. So these instruments, these 5 instruments, including the Rabab, are unique to Gurmat Sangeet, to Sikh music, to Sikh history. Our gurus who gave everything, like did so much for us, even gave their lives for us, also gave us musical instruments.
And
There's
just
got to be
to
rhyme and reason behind it. It's not madness. It's not it's not irony. It's like there's more depth to this, and we're ignoring it,
yeah.
which is why we're not able to get to the same level of frequency or even capacity and output as they were. Like, we're not of that caliber anymore. We're missing something big. And for me, that big thing we're missing is this.
See, you just mentioned another instrument, Jodi,
Mm.
right? A lot of people in every gurdwara think tabla is tabla, and we're just going to play the tabla.
Tabla is not the Geordie.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and obviously there's be people out there thinking, oh, Jodi is just a tabla.
Mm-hmm.
It's nowhere near
No.
a tabla.
Mm-mm.
And I remember when we were younger in Nanaksar, one of the things was after Eras, one of the things we used to do was put atta on the jodi. So
Mm-hmm.
it was actually your tamma, and you're actually putting atta on there
Mm-hmm.
to play the jodi properly. And it was once you finish, you take the atta off
Yeah.
to protect the leather,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it is back to frequency because the bass that comes out of jodi doesn't come out of
It's
what comes out of
unmatched.
tamma. You
Yeah.
can't match it with a
Tabla
tabla.
can't do that.
No, you
No, no,
can't.
no, no,
No.
no. Those instruments, like the sound is just so much richer,
Mm-hmm.
but the vibration and the frequency is otherworldly. Like when you're in that space, it does transport you.
Mm.
And it was only through the experience. Like if I was just like theorizing this, right, looking from a distance and studying it,
Yeah, yeah.
I would have a different,
Perspective. Yeah.
absolutely, I'd come to a different
Yeah.
conclusion.
Yeah.
But because it was about immersion and learning from the inside
Mm.
and dipping in the water and feeling the water on my body and understanding what's happening, and the water is the music, right? That I need to look from the inside, and I need to think and feel with my heart, not with my head. And that's the only way that this will I'll understand this, or this will make sense to me. And that was my objective on a personal spiritual path, is I want to experience this. One of my first questions at the beginning of my journey of Sikhi was, we refer to the Sarup of Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj as the living Guru. And I was told this in many camps and,
Mhm.
so on and so forth. Whenever I dared to ask the question, I was always told to shut the hell up because I'm being disrespectful and you don't ask that. But it was a genuine, like, curiosity and a want to understand that how is the written word a living embodiment of the Guru? Because if you tell me to imagine Guru Gobind Singh Ji in my mind, or Guru Nanak Maharaj, or Guru Har Rai Maharaj in my mind,
Mhm.
I could. I could close my eyes and I might do it through the lens of Soba Singh, right? Because he's got his
But is
depictions.
it through a saroop? Is that what you're
No, so I'm saying,
Yeah.
like, think from the mind of a child.
Yeah.
We put images to things,
Yeah.
right? We
Yeah.
put shapes and forms to
Mhm.
things. So this was me thinking then, like in my early
Right.
teens, when
Right.
I'm going to the Gurmat camps and they're telling us about this, and the living Guru, this phrase is being thrown around.
Mhm.
And I was trying to make the connection, but it wasn't connecting for me. And then whenever I did ask, I'd get yelled at all the time. Um,
Right.
but then I tried to contemplate, like, what does it mean, and how does it how? Because I can try to imagine and visualize using those outlets that we have of like paintings or whatever, or even my own imagination, what the gurus could look like, right? And they
Yeah.
did come in human form, so I would imagine them in the body of a human, right? Um, but I feel disconnected from Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj. I don't feel that same familiarity. Why is that?
Mhm.
And I know I'm not the only one, but it's not something we're allowed to talk about, right? Because otherwise, then it makes us look less qualified as Sikhs, or it makes us look like we don't know what we're talking about, or people are going to question whatever it is,
Mhm.
insecurity. But the fact is, we all feel disconnected because we haven't actually developed a relationship, let alone nurtured a relationship with Guru Granth Sahib Maharaj. And my beginning was there, is like, how? How is like a scriptural text my living guru?
Yeah.
Like how do I make a connection in the same way that I could with a human,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
That was always my like in the back of my head, how? And I want that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not possible, but no one's telling me how.
Yeah.
And then it was through the Kirtan, it
Yeah.
began to unfold
Yeah.
that you're almost having a dialogue. And because you're using the instruments that the gurus created, it's like a direct portal that like
Yeah.
takes you there.
Mhm.
And it obviously takes practice. It's not like the first time you're going to sit and play, it's not going to sound great, okay?
No, no,
Like
no,
the first
no.
time you make a roti, it's a mess.
Yeah.
But the practice, the discipline, it unlocks different levels. Think of it like a game, right? When you conquer level 1, you've beaten the boss and you get to level 2 and you hit the boss and you're going up. And that's what I imagine my spiritual journey to be like inside of me, that okay, I'm moving through different levels and there's going to be obstacles, there's going to be challenges, and I welcome them because they're going to make me better, they're going to make me more proficient. So I want the challenges so I can get better, so I can improve. And that process, when it got to that point of, it was when my life fell apart. When my life fell apart is when
Mhm.
it all made sense.
Wow.
Like I knew the
Okay.
mechanics of how it should work,
Yeah.
but then the embodiment of it,
Yeah.
that's the key.
Mm.
Like, let's just not read the text. Let's just not read the books. Let's practice what they're telling us to do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I thought I was practicing. I thought I was doing the things, and I was, but there was further depth for me to explore.
The most fundamental basics people forget. You know, everyone's saying you need to you need to learn, and first thing they do is learn to read and rhyme the Guru Granth Sahib. So they're just reading it. They're not understanding it. They're just reading it. Before you even step on that journey, slow down.
Hmm.
Right? I always say. Then they say Mool Mantar.
Hmm.
It's like, no, no, slow down. Think of just Waheguru. If you can just have that one word and really
Hmm.
understand what that actually means and embody that and drive that,
Hmm.
it is profound how I find these conversations with people that are clothed, gyanis, or people that say they're really religious and stuff, where the fundamental basics aren't even there.
Hmm.
So how are they going to connect? How are they going to help you or help us
Hmm.
find that portal? Because what we're trying to do is find that connection or find that portal.
That's the goal. But you can't, if you've not been there, how are you going to direct me? Right?
Yeah.
Can't tell me the route to a
Hmm.
place you've never been.
Hmm.
A place that you go to every day, you could direct me there with your eyes closed. Literally, right? So that that comes down to Jivan, your lifestyle, how you live, and what this means for you on a daily basis. Like, is it something you wear that you can put on and take off? Or is it something you do just for show because it's a part of your bread and butter and your livelihood? And these are questions that people need to ask themselves. Like,
Mm.
what role does this play in my life? If you're connecting to Sikhi because you truly want to be a better person and you take inspiration from all of the great personalities that we read about in Sikh history, and you want to be of that caliber and you want to do the work, it's like going to spiritual gym. It's not easy. Like, to tone up your body on a physical form is not easy,
But like you
right?
said, you got to unwire yourself first. You got to, if you really want to go on that spiritual journey,
Yes.
that rewiring is really important. We talked about, the whole thing around the ice cubes earlier.
Hmm.
We were saying you got to unfreeze to refreeze your
Mm.
mind to be able to go on that journey.
The step before that is the
Yeah.
most crucial. You have to want to. You have to
Yeah.
choose it.
Mm.
And most people don't want it.
Mm.
They're happy with what they're doing now
Anything
because it
that's
works
hard,
for them.
nobody wants. If it's
Who wants
hard,
to be uncomfortable, right?
yeah.
So that shows how much our mindset has deteriorated.
Mm.
If we're shying away from hardship, we're not of the caliber that our gurus wanted us to be, that Sikhs should be at.
Hmm.
We're not. If we're saying, oh, we're just going to do the bare minimum, I can get away with this, it's comfortable, it's working for me, it's okay. It's okay if I'm not good at that. I'm really good at this, though. We were not meant to be that. We were meant to be able to be Sant and Sipahi. We were not meant to be just, renunciates who are living in the mountains or living in the jungles. And we're not meant to just be immersed into this mayatari dunya We're meant to be here, be in the world, but not of the world.
So what do you mean by santanship by, or is it more medium PD? What is the meaning behind that?
For me, it means like the same thing. Like Miri Piri, the concept of us taking arms was introduced at the time of Guru Hargobind Ji. And it was as a response of the climate at that time because Guru Arjan Maharaj Shahidi had just happened. And I mean, even if we were to think about the Shahidi of Guru Arjan Maharaj, what it